The year was 2087. Humanity had spread beyond Earth to build colonies on Mars and Europa. Life was not easy on these new worlds, but people adapted as they always had throughout history. Commander Allison Wright stood at the observatory window of Earth Space Command headquarters. She watched the stars as she did most evenings when her duties allowed. At 42, she had already lived through humanity's first steps into the solar system. The Mars conflicts had left a small scar above her right eyebrow and many more invisible ones. Now she served as head of Earth's diplomatic security force. "Commander, you're needed in the briefing room," said a young officer behind her. Wright nodded and followed without speaking. She had learned long ago that bad news rarely improved with questions. In the briefing room, screens showed images from deep space. Strange objects moved toward Earth, too fast and too purposeful to be natural. "They appeared beyond Neptune's orbit 3 hours ago," said Admiral Chen. "Whatever they are, they're not ours." Wright studied the objects. "How long until they reach Earth?" "At current speed, 36 hours. The room fell silent. Humanity had wondered about alien life for centuries. Now the question was answered, and no one knew what to say. "Alert the United Nations," Wright finally said, "and get me Dr. Joseph Carter from Berkeley University." Dr. Joseph Carter had spent 15 years studying potential alien languages and cultures. His colleagues had called him crazy. Some days he agreed with them, but now, as he rushed to the UN building in New York, his theories didn't seem so crazy anymore. Carter was a tall man with kind eyes and a beard that was more gray than brown. At 53, he had almost given up hope of seeing proof of alien life during his lifetime. "Dr. Carter," Wright greeted him at the security checkpoint. "Thank you for coming quickly." "I've waited my whole career for this day," he replied. "Though I confess I'm terrified." Wright smiled slightly. "That makes two of us." Together, they joined world leaders and military officials in the main chamber. The screens showed the alien ships now in orbit around Earth. There were 7 of them, each larger than anything humans had ever built. "They're sending a signal," said a communications officer. "It contains visual data and what appears to be language." Carter moved to the communication station and began studying the incoming data. "It's structured," he said after several minutes. "They're using mathematical principles as a foundation. Give me some time with the computer system." 3 hours later, as tension in the room reached its peak, Carter looked up from his work. "I think I can establish basic communication," he said. "They're calling themselves the Galactic Council Majors." The meeting was set for noon the next day at the UN Plaza. Security was unprecedented. Military forces from every major nation surrounded the area. Fighter jets circled overhead. Wright stood beside Carter near the temporary landing pad. Her hand rested near her sidearm, though she knew it would make little difference if these visitors meant harm. "Are you ready?" she asked Carter. He clutched his translator device nervously. "As ready as anyone can be to meet aliens." The air shimmered as a small craft descended from one of the massive ships above. It made no sound as it landed, which Wright found more unsettling than any engine noise. Door appeared in the side of the craft. 3 figures emerged. The first was tall and thin with pale blue skin and 4 arms. The second moved like liquid mercury, its shape constantly shifting slightly. The third looked almost human except for its golden skin and eyes with vertical pupils. "I am Zorlath of Centauri Prime," said the blue being, its words translated through Carter's device. "I speak for the Galactic Council Majors. We have come to welcome Earth into the galactic community." World leaders stepped forward to greet the visitors. Cameras flashed. History was being made. Later in the UN Assembly Hall, Zorlath explained the purpose of their arrival. "Your species has achieved interplanetary travel. This milestone brings you to our attention. The galaxy is filled with dangers you cannot imagine. The Council exists to protect developing civilizations like yours." The Mercury-like being moved forward. "I am Solorian. Our records show 17 extinct civilizations in this sector alone. Without protection, Earth would likely share their fate." The golden-skinned alien nodded. "I am Vresh. The Council offers Earth protected status. This is a great honor." Carter translated carefully, but Wright noticed something in the aliens. tone that didn't translate. Something cold. Zorlath continued. Protected status requires certain obligations. Your resources must support the Council's protection efforts. Your technology development will be guided to ensure safety. And naturally, Earth must acknowledge Council authority in all interstellar matters. You mean we give you our resources and follow your rules, said the U.S. President. For your protection, Zorlath replied. The alternative is to face the galaxy alone. Few civilizations survive that choice. Wright tensed at the implied threat. She caught Carter's eye, and he nodded, slightly. He had heard it too. How much time do we have to consider this offer? Asked the UN Secretary General. 30 Earth days, said Zorlath. We will remain in orbit until then. As the meeting ended, Wright and Carter walked together down the hallway. This isn't a negotiation, Wright whispered. It's an ultimatum. Carter nodded. Something doesn't add up. If they're so concerned with protecting us, why do they need our resources? And did you notice how they avoided questions about other protected planets? I noticed. What do you think their real agenda is? I don't know, Carter said, but I intend to find out. Over the next week, world governments debated the Council's offer. Most leaders favored acceptance. The alien ships in orbit were a constant reminder of humanity's technological disadvantage. Wright was assigned to escort the alien representatives during diplomatic meetings. She used this opportunity to observe them closely. In her apartment one night, she called Carter on a secure line. They never eat in public, she said, and they only meet with high-level officials. It's like they're limiting their exposure. I've been studying the cultural database they provided, Carter replied. There are inconsistencies in their historical accounts, and I can't find any images of actual worlds under their protection, only generic descriptions. Do you think they're hiding something? I'm certain of it. We need more information before the 30 days are up. Wright made a decision. Meet me tomorrow at the old library on 5th Street. Use the back entrance. Don't tell anyone. The next day, they met in a quiet corner of the library's basement. Wright had brought along someone new, a young woman with serious eyes. This is Catherine Blake from Intelligence, Wright said. She's been analyzing the Council's communication patterns. Blake opened her laptop. Their ships send regular bursts of data to somewhere beyond our solar system. It's heavily encrypted, but I've managed to catch fragments. They refer to Earth as Resource Point 2187 in their private communications, not as a protected world. Carter frowned. That matches what I've found. I don't think we're the first civilization to receive these terms. And based on some references I've decoded, those who submitted rarely advanced beyond being resource providers. Wright looked at her two companions. So what do? The government is leaning toward acceptance. We need proof, Carter said, and we need to find out if anyone has ever successfully refused the Council's protection. Wright nodded. Then that's our mission. We have 23 days to discover the truth and convince our leaders before they sign away Earth's future. As they left separately, Wright looked up at the alien ships visible in the evening sky. They had come offering protection, but her instincts told her humanity needed protection from them instead. The countdown to Decision Day had begun. 6 months had passed since Earth accepted the Council's terms. The massive alien ship still orbited the planet, a constant reminder of humanity's new status in the galaxy. Commander Allison Wright walked through New Chicago's busy streets. The city had changed. Council monitors stood at major intersections, their blue skin and forearms no longer drawing stares from humans. People had grown used to alien presence, but not to the changes that came with it. Wright entered a small coffee shop and ordered a drink she no longer enjoyed. Coffee was among the luxury items now restricted under Council quotas. What they served now was a weak substitute. A man sat down across from her. Samuel Rivera looked thinner than when she had last seen him. As governor of the Europa colony, he had witnessed firsthand the harsh reality of Council protection. How bad is it up there? Wright asked quietly. Rivera's eyes darted around before he answered. We're barely surviving. They take 80% of our water harvest. The mining quotas increase every month. People are working 16-hour shifts. Wright nodded. Similar reports came from all human colonies. Earth itself struggled under resource demands that grew heavier each month. Any monitoring on your communications? She asked. All of them. Nothing goes in or out without council approval. The door opened and Dr. Joseph Carter entered, with a woman Wright recognized as Lisa Donovan, a brilliant engineer whose anti-gravity prototypes had been confiscated by council authorities. We need to keep this brief, Carter said as they joined the table. Blake will be here soon with new information. Donovan pulled out a small device and placed it in the center of the table. This will scramble any listening technology. We have 3 minutes before it might be detected. Wright leaned forward. What have you learned, Carter? I've been studying council language patterns. They make mistakes sometimes, references to other species they've protected. I've identified at least 12 other civilizations currently under their control. Rivera's hands tightened around his cup. Have any ever broken free? Not that I can find, but there are gaps in their records. Missing civilizations they stopped mentioning. Catherine Blake slipped into the seat beside them, her face pale with tension. I got into their secure communication, she said without greeting. It was only for a few minutes before their systems detected me, but it was enough. She placed a small data drive on the table. They've done this dozens of times, she continued. Find developing spacefaring civilizations, impose protection, then slowly drain them of resources and innovation until they're completely dependent. Wright took the drive. Is there proof on this? Blake nodded. Enough to convince anyone with doubts. Communications between their ships and whatever central authority they report to. They're not protecting us from outside threats. We are the resource they're harvesting. The scrambling device blinked red. Time's up, Donovan said, taking the device back. We should leave separately. Wright stood. Meet at the backup location in 3 days. We'll need to bring in more people we trust. As they prepared to leave, Rivera stopped them. There's something else you should know. The colony on Europa is planning to reduce our output next month. Not openly rebel, just produce less than the quota. Carter looked alarmed. Is that wise? The council might... People are dying from exhaustion, Rivera cut in. We have no choice. Wright put a hand on his shoulder. Be careful. We need more time before any open resistance. Time is something we don't have, Rivera replied. 2 weeks later, Wright received the news she had feared. The Europa colony had delivered only 60% of its water quota. The council's response was immediate. Wright rushed to the emergency meeting at UN headquarters. World leaders and colony representatives gathered under the watchful eyes of Council monitors. Sorlath, the primary council representative, addressed the assembly. The failure of the Europa colony to meet its obligations threatens the protection agreement, the alien said. The council must ensure compliance. The Secretary General stood. The quotas are too high. People are suffering. Surely we can negotiate. This is not a negotiation, Zorlath interrupted. The terms were accepted. To demonstrate the seriousness of this matter, the Council has implemented corrective measures at Europa. The main screen showed the Europa colony. Life support systems in 3 major sectors had been partially shut down. Oxygen levels were dropping. Rivera, attending via video link, looked devastated. There are 800 people in those sectors. You can't just... Full life support will be restored when the colony demonstrates its commitment to the agreement, Zorlath said coldly. This incident will serve as an example. The meeting erupted into shouts and protests. Wright slipped out and called Blake on a secure line. They're killing people on Europa to make a point, she said. We need to act faster. I've been making contacts, Blake replied. Military personnel, scientists, colonial administrators, people who see what's happening. We have a network forming. Good. We're calling it the Underground Alliance now. Tell them to be ready. 3 days later, Wright met with the Core Alliance members in an abandoned subway tunnel beneath New Chicago. The group had grown to include military officers, scientists, and colonial representatives. Carter displayed the data they had gathered on projected screens. The Council isn't what it claims to be, he explained. They present themselves as a coalition of advanced species, but evidence suggests they may be a single civilization using biological constructs as representatives. Donovan stepped forward. I've been analyzing their technology from what little we can observe. Their weapons and shields operate on principles we can understand. Different, but not impossibly advanced. What are you saying? Asked a colonial military officer. I'm saying we might be able to fight back, Donovan replied. Not now, but with time and resources. Rivera joined them, his face drawn with grief. 327 people died on Europa before they restored life support. My wife Ellen was among them. The room fell silent. Rivera's eyes hardened. I'm done with caution. Tell me what you need from Europa, and you'll have it. Whatever the risk. Wright surveyed the room. From this moment, we are no longer just gathering information. We are actively resisting. Each of you has skills and access we need. She outlined their immediate goals. Establish secure communications outside Council monitoring, develop weapons technology that could match Council capabilities, and unite Earth and colonial leadership in quiet resistance. They expect us to be like the others, beaten into submission through fear and isolation, Wright said. But they don't understand humanity. We've spent our entire history fighting against those who would control us. Carter added, we need to learn more about the Council's true nature and find weaknesses. I've been approved for an archaeological expedition to a supposedly abandoned planet in the Tau Ceti system. A Council representative named Mentioc will accompany us. That could be dangerous, Blake warned. All of this is dangerous, Carter replied, but the expedition might reveal information about other civilizations that faced the Council before us. As the meeting concluded, Wright looked at the faces around her. The Alliance's recruitment had tripled since the Europa incident. The question was no longer if humanity would resist, but when, and how to do so without inviting extinction. They demanded our submission, she told the group. But humanity has chosen revolution instead. Remember that in the difficult days ahead. The Council ship hummed quietly as it carried Dr. Joseph Carter and his team toward the Tau Ceti system. Carter looked out the viewport at the stars streaking by. Space travel had never been this fast when humans were in control of their own ships. Next to him stood Olivia Mason, a geologist and Secret Alliance member. They spoke in hushed tones, aware that Mentioc, their Council monitor, might appear at any moment. 7 days to reach Tau Ceti, Mason whispered. Human ships would take years. Carter nodded. Their technology is impressive, but remember why we're here. The official purpose of their expedition was to study the remains of an ancient civilization on the fourth planet in the Tau Ceti system. The Council had approved the mission with unusual speed, which made Carter suspicious. Mentioc entered the room, its golden skin gleaming under the lights. Of all the Council representatives, Mentioc looked most human, which somehow made it more unsettling. We will arrive in 6.4 Earth days, Mentioc announced. You will have 14 Earth days to conduct your studies before we must return. Thank you for the update, Carter replied politely. May I ask why this planet is uninhabited? The Council records mentioned it was once home to the Centauri civilization. Mentioc's vertical pupils narrowed slightly. The Centauri joined the Council, protection thousands of years ago. They chose to relocate to more hospitable worlds. Their home planet suffered climate degradation. I look forward to studying their ruins, Carter said, noting the slight hesitation in Mentioc's answer. After Mentioc left, Mason leaned closer. Did you notice? Its eye membranes flickered when it mentioned relocation. Carter nodded. The Council, representatives have tells when they're not being truthful. Keep watching for them. The planet looked dead from orbit. Once it might have been like Earth, with blue oceans and green continents. Now it was mostly brown and gray, with small patches of struggling vegetation. As their shuttle descended to the surface, Mason studied the readings on her equipment. The atmosphere is thin but breathable. No signs of radiation or toxins. Odd for a planet with climate degradation, Carter noted. Mentioc stood behind them. The Centauri industrial activities damaged their atmosphere before Council intervention. They landed near what had once been a major city. Now it was mostly rubble with a few structures still standing. The expedition team of 8 humans unpacked their equipment under Mentioc's watchful eyes. For 3 days, they worked within clear view of their monitor, cataloging ruins and collecting samples. But Carter had a plan. On the 4th day, he arranged for a minor equipment malfunction that required Mentioc's attention at the main camp. "Mason, now's our chance," Carter whispered as Mentioc moved away. The eastern sector. They hurried through the ruins, following coordinates Blake had discovered. In fragmented council communications, according to her intelligence, something important lay hidden there. Something the council didn't want found. "Here," Mason said, stopping before what appeared to be a collapsed building. "The energy readings are strongest underneath this structure." They worked quickly, clearing debris until they found what looked like a sealed doorway. The material was unlike anything else they had seen on the planet, a smooth, dark metal that seemed to absorb light. "This isn't ancient," Carter said. "This is advanced technology." Mason examined the door. "There's no obvious opening mechanism." Carter pulled out a device Donovan had given him before the mission. "Try this. It generates a specific energy frequency that might interact with Centauri technology." When Mason applied the device to the door, it slid open silently. Inside was a chamber that looked untouched by time. Soft lights activated as they entered. "It's a preservation vault," Carter whispered in awe. "Self-contained power source, atmospheric controls. This has been waiting for someone to find it." The walls were lined with data storage devices and artifacts. In the center stood a holographic projector. "We don't have much time," Mason said, checking her watch. "Mentioc will come looking for us soon." Carter approached the projector and activated it. A figure appeared, tall with 4 arms and a ridged forehead. It was clearly not human, but nothing like the council representatives either. The figure spoke in an unknown language. Carter pulled out his translator device and adjusted the settings. "Final record of the Centauri High Council," the translation said haltingly. "If you are seeing this, you may be facing the same threat that destroyed our civilization." Carter and Mason exchanged shocked looks. "The beings who call themselves the Galactic Council Majors are not what they claim," the hologram continued. "They are a single predatory species that has conquered many worlds. They create biological constructs to represent fictitious member species, creating the illusion of diversity and consensus." The hologram showed images of council ships bombarding cities from orbit. The destruction matched the ruins they had seen, outside. "When we refused their terms of protection, they attacked without warning. Our colonies were isolated and starved. Our infrastructure was systematically destroyed until our people were reduced to primitive conditions. Those who survived were removed to labor planets." Carter felt sick. This matched his suspicions, but seeing the evidence was still horrifying. "Before the end, our scientists developed shield technology that could withstand their weapons. We could not deploy it in time to save ourselves, but we leave this knowledge in hope that others might use it." Data streamed across the hologram, technical specifications and formulas. "We must save this," Mason said, connecting a storage device to the system. As the data transferred, Carter explored the rest of the chamber. He found small crystal containers holding what appeared to be biological samples. "Mason, look at these. I think they might be." A blast shook the chamber. Dust fell from the ceiling. "They found us," Mason said, grabbing the now-filled storage device. "We have to go." They rushed to the doorway but stopped short. Mentioc stood there, holding a weapon, unlike anything they had seen the council use before. "You have accessed restricted information," Mentioc said coldly. "This violates the terms of your research permit." Carter stepped forward, keeping Mason behind him. "What happened to the Centauri? Did they really choose to relocate?" Mentioc's eyes narrowed. "The fate of primitive civilizations is not your concern. The council determines what knowledge is appropriate for protected species." "We know the truth," Carter said. "You're not a coalition. The council is a single species using conquered worlds for resources." For a moment, Mentioc seemed surprised. Then it raised its weapon. "You will not leave this planet with that information." A sudden rumble shook the ground. Part of the ceiling collapsed, separating Mentioc from Carter and Mason. "The shuttle," Mason shouted. "We need to get back to the shuttle." They ran through another exit from the chamber, hearing Mentioc calling for backup through its communication device. The expedition camp was in chaos when they arrived. A groundquake, possibly triggered by their activation of the Centauri vault, had damaged equipment and created confusion. "Everyone to the shuttle," Carter ordered. "Emergency evacuation." As the team scrambled aboard, Mentioc appeared at the edge of the camp, its weapon raised. "The Council will know what you found," it shouted. The shuttle doors closed just as it fired. The energy blast scorched the side of the vessel but didn't penetrate. As they lifted off, Mason clutched the precious data device. "We did it. We have proof of what they really are. And the Centauri shield technology." Carter nodded grimly. "Now we just have to get it back to Earth and the Alliance. The revolution has its evidence, and maybe its chance at survival." Through the viewport, they watched the dead world of the Centauri grow smaller below them. Soon, they would face the Council with their newfound knowledge, and humanity would need to prepare for open conflict. The underground base on Mars was hidden deep within the Olympus Mons cave system. Once a mining operation, it now served as the main research facility for the Alliance. Here, 200 miles from the nearest Council monitoring station, humanity worked in secret to develop its resistance capabilities. Commander Allison Wright strode through the facility, nodding to scientists and engineers as she passed. The atmosphere was tense but determined. They all knew what was at stake. She entered the main laboratory where Lisa Donovan was examining the Centauri data crystals brought back by Carter and Mason 3 months ago. "Any progress?" Wright asked. Donovan looked up from her work, dark circles under her eyes showing her exhaustion. "The shield technology is amazing. The Centauri were centuries ahead of us, but they built it using principles we can understand. Can we replicate it?" "Not exactly," Donovan admitted. "We don't have the materials or manufacturing capabilities, but we can adapt the concepts to our technology." She pointed to a model on her screen. "We're combining Centauri shield concepts with our phase shift research. It's not just defensive. It could revolutionize our propulsion systems too." Wright studied the schematics. She wasn't a scientist, but she understood enough to see the potential. "How long until we have a working prototype?" "A few weeks for small-scale testing. Maybe 3 months for something big enough to protect a ship or colony." "We might not have 3 months," Wright said. "Council inspections have increased across the system. They suspect something." Catherine Blake entered the lab, her face grim. "They more than suspect. I just received word from our contact in UN security. The Council has demanded access to all research facilities, including those on Mars." Wright's jaw tightened. "When?" 5 days. They're sending a special inspection team." "We need to move up the timeline," Wright decided. "Donovan, what do you need to get a working prototype in 5 days?" Donovan ran her hands through her hair. "It's not possible to complete the full shield system, but we might manage a proof of concept for the phase shift drive. Enough to show it works." "Do it," Wright ordered. "Blake, warn all allied bases and get me Paul Nelson from the quantum lab." In the deepest level of the Olympus Mons facility, Paul Nelson worked with a team of physicists on the most critical component of their resistance plan. At 35, he was considered the most brilliant quantum physicist in the solar system. Now he was their best hope. When Wright entered his laboratory, Nelson was inside a shielded chamber, making adjustments to a device the size of a small refrigerator. "Commander," he greeted her, stepping out and removing his protective goggles. "I'm guessing you've heard about the inspection." 5 days, Nelson. Please tell me you have something." He led her to a display showing energy readings. "We've achieved stability in the phase shift matrix. The mathematics work. In theory, a ship equipped with this drive could move in and out of normal space faster than Council targeting systems can track." "In theory?" Nelson hesitated. "We haven't tested it at full power. The energy requirements are enormous, and any test would be detectable by Council sensors." Wright considered their options. A successful test would prove their technology worked. but would alert the council before they were ready. No test meant deploying unproven technology when lives depended on it. "Keep working," she finally said. "We'll make the decision on testing in 3 days." As she left the quantum lab, her communication device beeped. It was Carter, right here. "Commander, I've been analyzing the biological samples from the Centauri vault," Carter said, his voice tense. "You need to see this immediately." In the biological research section, Carter showed Wright and Blake what he had discovered. "These aren't just any samples," he explained, pointing to magnified images on his screen. "They're cellular structures from different council representatives. Look at the genetic markers." Wright studied the screen, though the scientific details were beyond her expertise. "What am I looking at, Carter?" "Proof that all council representatives, Zorlath, Silurian, Vresh, Mentioch, they're all genetically engineered constructs created from the same base organism. Different appearances, same creator." Blake moved closer to the screen. "So the council really is just one species using these constructs as puppets?" "Exactly," Carter nodded. "And based on these samples, I believe the Centauri managed to capture one or more of these constructs before their civilization fell. They were studying them, trying to find weaknesses." "Did they find any?" Wright asked. "I'm still analyzing the data, but there's evidence of a neural control network. All constructs may be linked to a centralized intelligence. If we could disrupt that network..." A siren cut through their conversation. Red emergency lights flashed throughout the facility. Blake rushed to a communication terminal. "Security breach at surface level," she reported. "Council ships are entering Mars orbit ahead of schedule." Wright's mind raced. "They know. Someone talked or they detected our research." "What do we do?" Carter asked. "Implement evacuation plan Delta," Wright ordered. "Essential personnel and research only. The rest fall back to the backup facilities on Europa and Titan." As the facility erupted into controlled chaos, Wright addressed her core team. "Nelson, is the prototype portable?" "Yes, but get it ready to move. Donovan, secure all Centauri data. Carter, bring the biological samples. Blake, activate our emergency communication network. Tell all Alliance cells, Operation Prometheus is now active." 3 days later, the Council inspection team arrived at the main Mars colony. They demanded access to all areas, including the supposedly abandoned mining operations in Olympus Mons. The colonial governor, an Alliance sympathizer, delayed them with bureaucratic procedures while the evacuation continued underground. But time was running out. In the lowest level of the facility, Wright watched as Nelson and his team made final adjustments to the prototype phase shift device, now installed in a small transport ship. "Is it ready?" she asked. Nelson nodded nervously. "As ready as it can be without testing. Power systems are integrated. If it works, this ship can outrun anything the Council has." "And if it doesn't work?" "Then we'll know very quickly," he said, grimly. Wright's communication device beeped. It was the Mars Colony Security Chief. "Commander, the Council team is bypassing our checkpoints. They're headed directly to Olympus Mons with armed escorts. ETA 20 minutes. "Understood," Wright replied. She turned to her team. "Time's up. Everyone to your assigned evacuation ships. Nelson, you're with me on the prototype." As they boarded the transport, Blake handed Wright a datapad. "Updated intelligence. The Council has deployed 7 warships to Mars orbit. They're positioning for a full blockade." Wright settled into the pilot's seat, with Nelson beside her at the engineering station. "Then we'd better hope this works. Signal the other evacuation ships to prepare for departure on my mark." The Council inspection team reached the upper entrance to the facility just as Wright initiated the launch sequence. Alarms blared as the hidden hangar doors opened on the mountainside. "They're firing on the mountain," Blake reported from her station. Wright gripped the controls. "Nelson, activate the phase shift drive." Nelson hesitated for just a moment, then engaged the system. The ship hummed with energy unlike anything they had felt before. "All evacuation ships, launch now," Wright ordered through the communication system. Scatter Pattern Alpha, rendezvous at the designated coordinates. As Council energy weapons struck the mountainside, sending rock and dust into the thin Martian atmosphere, 12 ships burst from hidden exits across Olympus Mons. Right pushed her ship to full power, feeling the strange sensation of the phase shift drive activating. The viewport showed Mars falling away below them, and then, for a brief moment, reality itself seemed to flicker. "It's working," Nelson shouted, his eyes on the instruments. "Phase variance is stable. We're moving faster than they're targeting. Systems can track." Council warships opened fire, energy weapons lancing through the Martian sky. But the Alliance ships, each equipped with at least partial Centauri-inspired technology, moved in unpredictable patterns. Some shots found targets, disabling 2 evacuation vessels, but the others escaped into space. "Set course for the Europa rendezvous," Wright ordered, "and send word to Earth. The Battle of Mars was just the beginning. The Human Council War has officially begun." The Council response to humanity's defiance was swift and brutal. Massive warships surrounded Earth, implementing a complete blockade of the Sol system. Nothing could enter or leave without facing the overwhelming firepower of the Council fleet. "Honor me, Earth." Those who had supported submission to the Council were quickly replaced by leaders who favored resistance. The evidence brought back by Carter and Mason had spread throughout human society. Everyone now knew the truth about the Galactic Council majors. In a hidden base beneath the Antarctic ice, Commander Allison Wright met with the newly formed Human Defense Council. Representatives from Earth and all colonies gathered to plan their next steps. "The blockade has cut off all traditional supply lines," said the Mars representative. "But they've underestimated our self-sufficiency. We've survived harsh environments throughout our history." Wright nodded. "Earth still has resources, and the colonies have become experts at recycling and sustainable production. We can outlast their siege tactics." Dr. Carter displayed the latest analysis of Council communication patterns. "They're confused by our resistance. Every other species they've encountered either submitted completely or was quickly crushed when they fought back. That's because they've never faced humans before," said Lisa Donovan with a grim smile. She stood before a large screen showing technical schematics. "The phase shift drive is now installed in 30 ships. We're producing more every week," Paul Nelson added. "The drive doesn't just help us move faster than their targeting systems. It lets us briefly slip between normal space, allowing ships to pass through their blockade." Wright turned to Catherine Blake. "What about our message? To other subjugated worlds?" Blake's expression was serious. "We've been broadcasting the truth about the Council through captured communication systems. Many dismiss it as human propaganda, but we've confirmed that small rebellions have erupted on 3 Council-controlled planets." "Not enough," Wright said. "We need allies if we're going to survive long-term. The Council controls hundreds of worlds." Carter stepped forward. "I may have a solution. The Centauri records mentioned another species that managed to resist Council control for decades, the Viridians. Their home system is beyond the edge of Council space. Can we reach them?" Wright asked. Nelson nodded slowly. "With the phase shift drive, yes. It would be dangerous, but possible." Wright made her decision. "Then we'll send a mission. I'll lead it myself, with Nelson to manage the drive technology." "I should go too," Carter said. "I've studied all available information about the Viridians. If anyone can communicate with them, it's me." The Defense Council approved the mission. 2 weeks later, Wright stood on the bridge of the Defiance, humanity's first true warship built with adapted Centauri technology. Nelson worked at the engineering station while Carter reviewed cultural and linguistic data. "Phase shift drive ready," Nelson reported. Wright took a deep breath. "Engage." The stars blurred as the Defiance slipped between normal space, bypassing the Council blockade around Earth. Their journey had begun. 3 months later, after dangerous jumps through uncharted space and several near encounters with Council patrols, they reached the edge of Viridian territory. "Unknown ships approaching," reported the sensor officer. "Configuration doesn't match Council designs." "Open communications," Wright ordered. "Dr. Carter, you're up." Carter transmitted the carefully prepared message in what they believed to Be the Viridian language based on Centauri records. For tense minutes, there was no response. Then the view screen activated, showing a being with gray-blue skin and large, multifaceted eyes. You speak an ancient dialect, the being said, its words translated by Carter's system. No one has used such speech patterns in generations. We learned from historical records, Carter explained. We are humans from the Sol system. We seek alliance against the Council Majors. The Viridian's eyes widened. You speak openly of resistance, are you not afraid? We're beyond fear, Wright said, stepping forward. We've already begun fighting back. We have evidence of the Council's true nature, and have developed technology based on Centauri designs. This caused visible shock among the Viridians. You know of the Centauri? They were destroyed over 1,000 years ago. Not completely, Carter said. They left a message and technology for others to find. After careful negotiations, the Viridians revealed their secret. They had maintained a resistance for generations, hiding in the shadows, appearing to comply with Council demands while secretly preparing for the day they could fight back. But we lacked the means to challenge their military directly, explained Korath, the Viridian leader. Our strength is in stealth and information gathering. We have operatives on dozens of Council-controlled worlds. While we have developed shield and propulsion technology that can match theirs, Wright said. Together, we might stand a chance. An alliance was formed that day, the first time in known history that two species united against Council domination. 6. Months later, the combined human-Viridian forces gathered near Proxima Centauri. Intelligence indicated that the Council had assembled their primary fleet there, preparing for a final assault to crush the human resistance once and for all. On the bridge of the Defiance, now scarred from previous battles, Wright addressed the officers from both species. Today we fight not just for Earth or Viridia, but for all worlds under Council control. Our victory here will signal to the galaxy that freedom is possible. The Council fleet was massive, over 100 warships arranged. In their standard formation, they had never faced a serious military challenge before, and relied on overwhelming force rather than tactical innovation. The battle began with a daring maneuver. Human ships using phase shift drives appeared inside the Council formation, disrupting their carefully arranged positions. Viridian vessels, nearly invisible to Council sensors, targeted communication arrays and shield generators. For 3 days, the battle raged across the Proxima Centauri system. Ships from both sides were damaged or destroyed. The Defiance itself took critical hits with life support failing on multiple decks. Meanwhile, a special operation was underway. Using the chaos of battle as cover, Carter and Blake infiltrated the Council command vessel using identities and biological masking technology provided by Viridian operatives. Deep within the massive ship, they discovered what the Centauri had only theorized, the control center of the entire Council operation. There, a small group of beings unlike any of the representatives they had seen before monitored the battle. The true Council, Carter whispered as they watched from hiding. Not constructs, but the actual beings. These creatures appeared ancient, their bodies augmented with technology that seemed melded to their flesh. They spoke among themselves, unconcerned about being overheard. Another rebellious species, one said dismissively. They will fall like all the others. This disruption is costly, said another. Perhaps we should deploy the ancients to end this quickly. Blake set up the special transmission device they had brought. Ready, she whispered to Carter. Carter activated the system, broadcasting directly to every world under Council control. The signal carried visual data of the true Council beings, along with evidence of their deception and the reality of their protection program. People of the galaxy, Carter said into the transmitter. For millennia, you have been deceived. The Galactic Council Majors is not a coalition of advanced species, but a single predatory civilization that has built an empire on subjugation and lies. Today, we show you the truth. As the evidence spread across Council-controlled space, the response was immediate. Uprisings erupted on dozens of worlds. Council representatives were captured or driven off by newly emboldened populations. The Council command ship detected the transmission and locked down, but it was too late. The truth was spreading faster than they could contain it. Right, directing. The battle from the damaged Defiance received word of the successful transmission. All ships push forward, she ordered. The Council is losing control of their empire. The battle ended not with the destruction of either fleet, but with the Council forces withdrawing in disarray as they received reports of rebellions across their territory. 1 year later, representatives from 27 formerly subjugated species gathered on Earth to form a new galactic association, one based on mutual respect and true cooperation. Admiral Wright, her uniform bearing the scars of hard-won victory, led the human delegation. The stars were never meant to be ruled, she told the assembly as they prepared to sign the new alliance charter. Only explored together. Dr. Carter, standing beside representatives from civilizations once thought extinct, including descendants of the Satari who had survived in hidden colonies, added, "They demanded our submission. We offered the galaxy revolution instead." As ships from Earth and the colonies prepared to venture beyond known space under the banner of the new alliance, humanity stepped into a galaxy forever changed by their defiance.